Welcome back to Born for This Stories, where we speak the truths no one told us, so you don't have to carry this alone. If one more person tells you he'll be fine, you might lose it. Not because you don't hope that's true, but because when someone says it that easily, it means they don't understand what you're actually carrying. You are not worried about 5 years from now. You are worried about anesthesia, about complications, about the call you never want to get. And when people rush you past that fear, it doesn't comfort you. It isolates you. Today isn't just for you. Today is for your people. The ones who love you, the ones who mean well, the ones who don't know how to show up. Because most people don't fail medical families because they don't care. They fail because no one ever taught them how to stay. So here's the map. I remember early on we had a moment where I felt very unsupported inside of like the system and inside of the connection and the groups that we were trying to find connection in. And as a mom with a young baby, I was looking for support. I was looking for connection. I was looking for someone to tell me it was going to be okay. And then I land in this group with a bunch of adults. And do you remember what was said to us?
Yeah, it was just a group of adult men that seemed like, I felt like we just joined a call of a group of guys that just had a weekly or monthly, I don't know how frequent, but call where they just chatted, and we just happened to be the first people that were like, okay, yeah, let's hop on. And they weren't expecting it or something, because I feel like I remember them mostly just having a kind of a conversation and then answered some questions we had because we were trying to make the most of it. But I specifically gained out of it that if we did nothing, we didn't have to worry because our son could still go into the military. Which was not at all what we wanted to hear or cared about at that point in our time at all, that the military didn't consider this to be something that would rule them out from eligibility from joining.
Yeah, it just wasn't
just a weird comment.
It wasn't the best advice, and it definitely was not the information that we came to seek. And you know, I remember accepting the information. I was a little choked up because again, I'm on this call. It was a support like association. It was like hypospadias like association or something. So it was like a group of people that were trying to like just have camaraderie, and they would have different meetups like once a year where individuals with hypospadias, but also families could come. So I thought I was going to be able to connect with other families, which was not the case at all. So when he had said that comment, I do remember like tearing up, and because I'm like, I really came here to hear like what we're about to walk through and that my baby's going to be okay. And that's not the information that we got. It's not the support that we got.
Yeah, and I think he tried to mean that it's not that serious. Like, I think he had good intentions.
He had good intentions, but this is like the whole reason that we want to speak upon this in this episode today, because for us, like I wasn't worried about my son's future career. I was worried about my baby making it through surgery. That was my biggest concern and my biggest question I had going into that meeting. And that was definitely not validated or picked up on at all. And I know that comment wasn't meant to bring any hurt or anything like that, but it did bypass my present fear of what I was going through. And it rushed to the future and avoid sitting in the now. And I think that happens so many times to medical parents and kiddos.
Well, and I also think that it was kind of not an applicable comment either, because we kind of, I don't know if at that point we knew we were going to correct the hypospadias or not, but I think we weren't going to leave it there and just be relieved he could join the military.
Right.
We were going to fix it anyways. And so we were just more worried about how he was going to handle surgery, and would the surgeries be successful?
Right.
And would we have to redo them? Because we had heard this horror stories of that stuff. And we just wanted to hear firsthand accounts of that it's okay. And everyone made it through it okay.
Yeah. And I think it's important to listen, especially when you're dealing with I mean, parents in general, but definitely the moms. When the moms are the ones showing up to the calls, it's important to really listen to what they are saying and hear them so we can bring some validation or answer some questions or fears. And when you're rushing someone past their fear, you're not letting them work through it. You're just regulating yourself. You're not supporting them and what they need. That's not a character flaw. That's just a human reflex because we're fixers and we want to help people feel good and feel better about the situation that they're about to go through. So we rush to the fix because sitting in fear is very uncomfortable. But medical parents need someone willing to stay in that with them. So what does that actually look like to stay? And we're going to go through it because we created a model. It's called the STAY model. So this will help your friends and family better support you. So if you feel like you haven't been supported, this will be a great episode to pass along to them. So what does S stand for?
Stay and be present.
Yes. So think about it this way, like don't predict, don't reassure them, and don't minimize what they're going through. Instead of saying things like, he'll be fine, we can pivot and say things like, I don't know what this is like for you, but I'm here. So I really think about this as just like really sitting in the space with them and holding space for that individual. Because more often than not, they don't want you to fix it. They feel alone and they just need someone present with them.
I also think that they're not even thinking in their right minds. I know for sure that we were not thinking in our right minds. So even if somebody's not in that situation, they're probably thinking, well, the obvious thing to do is tell them it's going to be okay and all that. But I don't know, when you have a child that gets diagnosed with something that needs surgical remediation or whatever the right term might be, I think you just don't think in your right mind. You're almost in a fight or flight.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. You're not regulated. Like you just can't be because your mind's going to all the scenarios and all the things that you read about and trying to analyze all the information. So having a present person with you, no matter if that's your spouse or, a sister, a sibling, maybe a parent, that can be very helpful for the caregiver going through it. Plus, it'll help bring better regulation to them. I mean, we don't expect you to obviously be 100% regulated through these scenarios. It's very stressful. It's very isolating. You're dealing with a lot, and especially depending on the severity of what your child's going through. But let's teach and bring in another present person into your support system so you feel less isolated, less alone, so you can be better regulated for yourself and for your child. And I think, again, we're just all conditioned to be like super optimistic through these types of things. Like we don't want to be told that we're negative or, you're always like looking at the bad things that could happen, because in reality, like as a parent, you are considering all options. And so again, just being more of like, I'm here for you would be super helpful. Did anyone check on you when you were going through?
Yeah, of course, my family, but nobody else really knew. I mean, I talked with both my sisters about it. I talked with my mom about it. And they were obviously great support systems, but this is one of those things, which is again, why we're doing the podcast in the first place, is nobody wanted to talk about it. We didn't want to talk about it when we were going through it. So I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah. I had talked to some of my mom friends about it just because like as a different perspective, like as a mom and as a woman, like I needed an outlet. I needed someone to talk to about it. But I got a lot of those answers that we're talking about because they were coming from moms that had not walked in these shoes and their kids were, quote unquote, like fine. They didn't have any medical conditions. And I got a lot of like, you're making the right choice. Like you're doing the right thing. He's going to thank you one day or everything's going to be fine. And going through that, like, I mean, yes, those are all really nice things to say, but they didn't fix any of the anxiety or the insecurities I had or answer any of the questions. So I see those people trying to support me.
Especially after the fact. Like now it's like, oh
Yeah.
that was really nice of
Yeah.
all the kind words we got. And stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not downplaying any of that stuff. I appreciate anyone that brought support and like positivity to the process. But when you are going through it, like now I can look back and be like, okay, that was like super nice that they said that. But when I was going through it, I'm like, man, they don't understand. Like they say it's going to be fine, but they're not the ones that have to travel 3 times. They're not the ones that have to deal with open wounds and wound healing and medications and, all of the ifs, ands, or buts of this process, and being the one to have to hold the mental load of, am I making the right decision or not? Am I picking the right team or not? So again, it was nice that they said that, but I did still feel very isolated and not properly supported because we were carrying so much of like decision fatigue, actual like fatigue of going through the procedures. And for us, like I felt like once you were fatigued from going to travel and actually have your son through the procedure, which was emotionally exhausting too. And then you get home and you dealt with wound care for a good 3 months. And by time you just started to take a deep breath again, they were in your email, like pinging you that you're 3 months pre-op now, you're 3 months from the next surgery. So we need to start prepping and preparing. And then your brain would spiral once again. So that part definitely, those kind words did not go very far. I felt alone, very, very alone. So the next thing that we can talk about though is like we want to stay present with our friends and our family that are going through these walks of life. We also want to tolerate the fear. So support requires an emotional tolerance. If sitting in fear is uncomfortable for you, imagine how it would be actually living and going through it and being one of these care providers for a medically complex child. Most people disappear because most people disappear not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to tolerate what you are carrying. So we're talking about tolerating fear, but I find that people actually are fearful of what you're going through and they don't know how to carry it and hold and help support you. But it doesn't have to be that complex. So what I also found is like medical parents they don't need optimism. I mean, we do, but not like that's not fully what we're looking for. We're looking for like company and support. So when we talk about tolerating the fear, what I've heard from many of our guests that we've chatted with is they've had what we'll consider disappearing friends or family. And even just saying that like makes me want to cry inside because we don't downplay the fact that we were very blessed in the regard of our families were very supportive. The friends that knew were, as supportive as they could be, not understanding and going through this process. But I would say we didn't have people like walk out of our lives because of this. But many of the families that we have talked to have. And that silence, man, that hurts more than words. And so I hope that going through the stay model can bring some perspective to these possible estranged like friends and family, and maybe even help build a bridge back to that healthier relationship, because we just need to bring some compassion back so the caregivers, the moms, the dads have support as they're going through this, because it's exhausting and it's isolating, and caregiver fatigue is an absolute real thing. So let's bridge that gap and really help these people out.
Thinking back on it too, wasn't it kind of people that had dealt with more severe,
Yes. The ones
the
that
most severe, that needed the most help,
and support.
seemed to kind of lose a couple people in their lives where it just seemed like it was too much for them, and it was easier for them to just bow out and not. And I don't think that was necessarily out of fear or out of anything. Maybe it was out of respect, trying to just let them have their space and do their thing, thinking that they couldn't help. But
well, and you're true. Maybe people think that they can't help, but I think that there are a lot of easy things that we can do to help, which is what we'll talk about next. And that's how to ask specifically that person in your life, like, what can you do? But we're not going to ask like, hey, what do you need from us? Because the caregiver probably doesn't know. They're exhausted. They're in fight or flight. They're trying to do all the things that their child needs, and maybe multiple children, because we've also talked to guests that have multiple medically complex children under one roof. So they're not just caring for one, but more than one, in addition to non-medically complex children. So that's already hard enough inside of itself, keeping kids alive. So what are some things that we can do? And, one thing that sat with me after our last recording, which will be an episode that you guys probably have already heard by the time this one comes out, is the mom told us that she has some good connections and some good friends. And one day she just opens her door and there are groceries on her front doorstep. She didn't ask her friend to do that, but she got a message from her friend and she's like, I know you're going through a lot. I know you guys just had a procedure here. Like, I wanted to take some load off of you and help you. And she was so thankful that she didn't even have to ask for that. So even though like the next part of stay is to ask specifically, we're going to do the better thing to do is to say things more like statements like, I'm going to bring you dinner on Thursday, or I'm going to take your older kids this weekend and allow for you to have, a little bit of downtime, or to at least take that portion of management off your plate. I'm going to come sit with you in that pre-op or through that surgical time and just be someone to sit next to you and bring you company. Specific removes decision fatigue, because decision fatigue is absolutely going to show up in these caregivers when they're caring for their child each and every day. And if it is not a daily thing that they have to go through, and it was something similar to ours where it was like bouts of time, there's all kinds of decision fatigue. So it can help no matter what type of situation that your friends and family are going through. There's all kinds of invisible load. I can definitely talk about that as a mom. And moms in general have invisible load of just trying to manage all the things going on and make sure that everything's properly handled and managed and kids are being fed and things are being cleaned up. But then when you add in the whole medical complexity, you're also thinking about caregiving. You're thinking about getting on the phone with the insurance companies, taking care of possible siblings that may be there, all the logistics of doctor's appointments, wound care, management, multiple provider appointments. A lot of times they're not in home, they're not coming to you. So it adds all these complicating factors. And to be able to just focus on like one thing seems impossible at times. So it is very helpful to have those individuals show up and bring dinner, or to hang out with your kiddo, your other kids when needed, to bring some better balance and to take even just a little bit of that stress off you can go a long, long way. And then the last part of stay is the why. So it stands for yield the spotlight. And what this really means is that what we kind of fall victim to as humans is when we are having conversations with people, we always want to like share our story that relates to their story and almost like have story battles and like whose is bigger and greater and badder. And this happens too when we're talking to individuals about the medical complexities and what they're going through. But we want to yield that spotlight away from ourselves as the friend and the family that's the support system, and put it more on the actual caregiver and that family themselves. So don't center yourself. Don't compete stories. Solidarity is not performance, it's restraint. So in these moments, just really being present with that person as they're speaking and they're talking can be some of the most beneficial ways to give back to these caregivers. And I remember I did talk to, I'm going to highlight like 2 stories that happened for me when we were going through this process early on. In the very beginning, I had posted in some Facebook groups, and a mom did say that I could give her a call. Her son had just finished up his 3rd surgery, had a very similar diagnosis as our son. And so I had jumped on the phone with her, and we just came from very different walks of life. She is a pediatrician. She's like, yes, my son has very similar like hypospadias to your son. He also needed the 3 surgeries. We just finished. He's doing great. It was amazing. Awesome. Like everything's great. He's going to be perfect. And I was thankful for the reassurance. Like I was definitely thankful that she saw success with the procedures and with that surgical team that we were choosing and all of that. However, I was also coming from like the holistic side where I wanted to also explore other options and decide was surgery really right for us and like what were the pros and cons. But speaking to someone that came from the medical side, it was just very all pros and there was no highlight of any cons. And maybe she just didn't feel comfortable talking about like any ups and downs, but like as we have shared, and I have no problem sharing, like the healing process wasn't super easy through all of them. I mean, they were up and down for sure, but there are things that like I would definitely tell another mom going through this, like to watch out for and to be aware of, just to bring awareness for them. So hopefully they had less heartache or less late night, early morning Googling sessions. Like, so there just was like some information not provided. And again, like very medical based. Yep, checked all the boxes, all good. And me being more holistic and natural based, I'm like, but what about all these things? And she didn't have that support from me. But, it was still good to hear her knowledge. And then there was the mom that sat with me in the coffee shop with me bawling for like 2 hours, who just really sat with me and held space with me. And her son had also a similar diagnosis, and they had done surgery, but that one, I would say was less than optimal. And I now reflecting and looking back on this, I do wonder, like, how did she feel after that meeting? Does she feel like with her sharing that story, like, did that scare me away and all of this stuff? And it definitely didn't. I mean, I barely even remembered that part of it. I was just so thankful that she just stayed. And she didn't put the spotlight on herself, even though her son had been through this. She just listened to me. She didn't really have much advice, which was totally fine inside that moment, but it just helped slow everything down for a moment, which I was extremely, extremely grateful for. So the first mom definitely helped bring some knowledge to the situation, but then that second mom really helped with just solidarity, which is what I was really missing and craving as a mom in general, but also as a mom who is going through this medical complex thing that was unknown to me, that we had no idea about, and now I had to navigate on my own. So I was very thankful for that.
So after some of the other stories that we had heard too, it seems like a lot of people don't reach out to their friends or family that are caregivers. For us, that wasn't much of a concern because we didn't tell too many people about what we were going through. But why do you think that it was that friends and family don't reach out to these people that are going through these hard times?
I think sometimes it's a fear of saying the wrong thing or not knowing what to say, which when you hear those words just like spoken out loud, you just kind of want to laugh and be like, but really? Like, and because again, I guess as we go through this episode, we are talking about like what to say and what not to say, but also at the same time, like being authentic and genuine and caring about someone. It's not the matter of like you quote unquote saying the wrong thing. Because if it comes from like a loving place, it's not going to really be wrong. It's still an effort and it still helps move in the right direction. And everything doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, you have to learn how to support your friends and your family through this as they're navigating this whole new life as well. And I think as long as you're willing to stand next to them in the trenches and like, again, you don't even have to speak. If you're willing to stand next to them in the trenches and just be like a safe, like sanctuary for them, that will just take them so far and help them feel less alone. And you don't need to have a happy ending or like have the best, beautiful, tailored thing to say. Sometimes just saying something altogether will really help that person feel less alone. So make sure you just keep showing up for them. That's the part that a lot of people miss. Support doesn't actually end when the surgery is over or the procedure or the doctor's appointments. Sometimes that's when families need it the most. And for us, we were very blessed to have my parents who pretty much travel full time. So they were able to travel with us when we went through this process. And I don't take that for granted for a day. I mean, we had never been away from our oldest son, who was 3 at the time at the beginning of this. We've never spent a night away from him. I didn't want to. That like wasn't part of like our family agenda. And it was part of our family's mission too, that like we came together on this. We didn't want to hide that from our older son because we knew this would be, an ongoing process and something that we would have to talk about as Silas gets older, and just to make sure everything's being navigated and managed the right way. So it was important for us to include him from the very beginning. And thankfully, like, my parents were able to help be that support system for us. And they came and they took care of our oldest son, when we were waiting for our youngest son to get out of surgery. And they helped keep the house when we were, taking care of doing wound dressings and all of that. And they made sure they sent us safely to the airport, and they didn't fly with us, but we were able, thankfully, to manage that on our own. But all of that support doesn't go unnoticed. I am forever grateful. And I'm also very grateful that we are in a position where we had that support. Talking to other families that do not, my heart definitely bleeds for them. And I hope that we can continue to find resources and provide that as much help as we can to them. Because I know there's also other resources out there that can help bridge that gap for them. So it was so nice that they didn't just respond to the emergency. They actually aligned with what mattered most to us, and that was ongoing support.
Yeah, I think too, what I think about is I don't think that our older son has any memories of why we were actually in Texas. I think he remembers the fun times that he had with his grandma and grandpa, which was really important to us too. And we were allowed to 100% focus on the surgeries and what was going on those days rather than worrying about our other child and all that.
Yeah, that did take a big weight off of our shoulders. So definitely just keep showing up, even when you think that you don't need to. Like, if they're still going through the medical complexity, if they're still doing doctor's appointments and surgeries and just everyday care for their child, don't stop showing up. Stay present with them to help provide for that person that is your loved one. If nobody has shown up this way for you yet, it is not because your fear is too much. It is not because your needs are unreasonable. It is because most people were never taught how to stay. And because of that, let's recap. We want to stay present, tolerate the fear, ask specifically, yield the spotlight, and keep showing up. You do not need to shrink your fear to make other people comfortable. You never did. If you love someone walking through a diagnosis right now, send them this episode, not because they've gotten it wrong, but because they deserve a map. And if you were the one in the middle of it, you were born for this. And so were the people who love you. They just need someone to show them how to stay. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to take one simple step. Share it with a friend, another parent, or a caregiver who might need to know they are not alone in this journey. Make sure you are subscribed so you will never miss an episode. We release new stories every Monday. And if you're looking for more connection, resources, or ways to share your own story, come join us on Instagram at Born for This Stories, or visit our website at borntforthisstories.com. Remember, whatever part of the journey you are in, the waiting room, the recovery, or the in-between, you do not have to carry it alone. We see you, we stand with you, and never forget, you were born for this.